Hey guys, and welcome back to the official podcast for Develop Young Unplugged. And this week we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is gratitude and healing relationships with gratitude. And really going from resentment to gratitude, because we tend to focus too much on the things people have done wrong or when people have upset us or let us down. And what we really want to do is change into a different mindset and look at all the stuff that people have contributed to us, all the things that people have done for us. And this is a topic that I feel we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about this enough. It's something that it's a missed opportunity, because if we don't take the time to really look at gratitude and implement it from a proactive and active perspective, we miss out on a lot. And most people, they treat it as a very, how shall I say, they treat it as a per need basis, like, or as I've said before, like a transactional thing. Like, okay, you do this for me, and I express gratitude for you. But the reality is, if you treat it as a transactional thing, there's always expectations. There's always gonna be letdowns. There's always gonna be frustration. There's always gonna be resentment. But when you treat it as more of a continuous thing, things get much better. And really what we want to look at is exactly that. How can we be grateful every day? And during the quarantine, it's much more difficult because our mind goes to darker places. We are robbed of a lot of activities and environments and connections, social connections, family connections that make us feel loved and supported, right? So what we want to do is get to a point where we have that collaboration, where we have that connection, where things really flow. And this requires an active role from your part. And right now in this episode, I was supposed to be joined by my girlfriend. I don't know if she'll be able to make it or not. She's not feeling super well, so we'll find out. She might pop up mid-episode, she might not. But I do want to take the time to talk about how, when we use gratitude, we become much more resilient and we become able to persevere through the toughest times, because there are going to be people that are there with you when they can and how they can. And there are going to be people who advise you and guide you in very different ways. And there are going to be people who give you tough love. There are going to be people who give you overprotective love. They're going to be people who give you every type of support that you can imagine, even stuff that can be interpreted as abuse. And what do I mean by this? There are so many people that have no idea how to express their love and care and do it in a more controlling way, in a more overprotective way. And that can be bad. That can be bad, but when you look at not the action, but actually the intention behind the action, everything changes. And that's why in Develop Young, we talk so much about personality psychology. We talk about different personality types and how each personality type expresses their love and support in different ways. You know, there are some people that are very emotionally expressive and that are going to make you feel loved and supported very easily. There are people who, on the contrary, have a really hard time expressing themselves and actually take care of you and guide you through tough love. And that tough love can sometimes be frustrating. It can sometimes offend you. It can sometimes hurt you. I have certain family members that are not very emotionally expressive, and that their way of helping me is literally criticizing me for hours. I have one uncle who can spend 4 hours telling me how everything I'm doing is wrong and how I need to do everything differently. But in reality, that's just his way of being like, yo, I am taking the time to guide you so you don't make the same mistakes as me. I'm taking my time to guide you so that you have less risk of failure, less risk of making a fool out of yourself. And that is a process to actively translate what people are telling you. Because for the longest time, I would get so frustrated, so upset, even offended by some of the things he would say. And I'd be like, I can't deal with this. Like, this guy has no clue who I am. I mean, he's giving me advice based on his mistakes, not based on my reality. And I would get so frustrated. And I remember the moment that I tuned out from that and I switched to a more, how should I say, my mindset, I had to change it to like, what is he really trying to do and why is he dedicating all this time? And when I started thinking to myself, if he didn't care, he wouldn't spend 4 hours a night drilling me. Like, that's just his way of expressing love and support. And that's something that the moment I started looking at everyone in my life that was letting me down, that was having conflicts with me, that was criticizing me, that was really affecting my self-worth, the moment that I took the time to translate what they were saying, I was like, oh, this person actually really cares about me. And this person just doesn't know how to express it. And that's why gratitude, it's something that goes both ways. It's both how we feel, interpret, and communicate gratitude, but also how we make other people feel that we're grateful for them. And that's a process because, one, we have to feel the gratitude for the other person. We have to acknowledge which people are grateful for us. And that can be tough because if you waste too much time helping people that are ungrateful, what happens? You're going to feel like you're never enough. You're going to feel like nothing you do is ever good enough. You're going to feel like you're not appreciated. You're going to feel like a failure. And I'm a big fan of surrounding yourself by people who are grateful. But there's a difference between people who say that they're grateful and people who are genuinely grateful. And that difference is sometimes tough to identify because there are people who say all the right things, do all the right things, but really might be using you or taking advantage of you or really just manipulating you. And then there are people who are generally grateful but are just less emotionally expressive. You know, they're personality types that have a really hard time saying thank you or saying I love you or I care about you or I value you. And that can be tough. And I've had to learn the tough way many times that some of the people that maybe say it the least actually care the most. And some of the ones that say it the most care the least. So you have to build that filter. And what I want to do in this episode is I want to talk about personality psychology a little bit with you guys so that you get an idea about how gratitude works in different elements, in different personalities. So in Develop Your Element, we talk about 6 different personality types, 2 extroverts, 2 ambiverts, and 2 introverts. Extroverts, they need higher social stimulus. Ambiverts need medium social stimulus. And introverts need low social stimulus. And we're all a mix of all the 6 elements, all the 6 different personality types. We are not just one thing. We're never limited to any one particular element. However, certain elements are more natural for us, easier for us to operate in. And the moment that we learn how to use them better and direct them better, that changes everything. But many of us also are influenced by our culture, our society, our family, our friends, and we adapt certain elements that are not natural but rather societal, you know. So we have the biological ones, which are the most natural, the easiest ones to operate in. Then we have the societal ones, which not as easy for us to operate in, but we can do it because we learn how to do it. And then finally we have passion projects, which is kind of the third state, the third way of operating, which is operating in such a way where you're so passionate about something that no one can stop you, where you get so excited and passionate about something that you can step into any personality. I mean, introverts can go on stage and be super charismatic. Extroverts can sit down and be still and organized for hours. When there's enough passion, you have enough mental clarity and enough energy to actually do what's required. So this is what we want to look at, how the 6 elements actually work. So if we look at the energy scale, for those of you watching us live, I have the energy scale behind me, and that is the 6 elements. We have the electric type as the most extroverted, the fiery type as the second most extroverted, then we have the aquatic type as the extroverted leaning ambivert, kind of middle energy, but leaning towards extrovert. Then we have the earthly type, which is the introverted leaning ambivert. And then we have the airy type, which is the first introvert. And the first introvert is basically quite introverted, but also kind of flexible in some environments, and I'll get into it in a bit. And then finally, we have the metallic type, which is the most introverted type. And we are a mix of all of them. And we have to understand that we need to embrace all of them. We need to stimulate all of them. We need to implement all of them. But there is a difference in terms of how each one functions and the instincts that they have. So when it comes to gratitude, the most extroverted type, the electric type looks for excitement, adrenaline, fun, constant change. They're not going to be with you 24/7. They're not going to be all the time expressing themselves with you, because they're always moving on to different things, exploring different places. But what they will do is still include you and invite you on their adventures. They will make you feel included, and their way of expressing their gratitude and their appreciation for you is either by including you on their adventures, planning things with you, having fun with you, or bringing you gifts that are novelty items. They're not the best at buying, the perfectly tailored thing for you, but they're very good at buying things that are fun and silly and playful, and that they were just kind of walking in a store and they thought of you and they're like, oh, this one is fun. I'm going to buy this for this person, right? So that's kind of how the electric type works. Then the fiery type is also an extrovert, but focuses on results, productivity, impact, really status, having certain leadership abilities. They like influencing change. They like coordinating things. They like making things happen. So for them, their way of expressing gratitude will be including you in their projects. They're going to have projects. They often are entrepreneurs or coaches or leaders in some form, or they're always going to have some project, whether it's on a personal level or career level. They're going to be passionate about something, and they're often going to be talking about the same topic. While an electric type will talk about 50 different things, a fiery type will focus more on their passion area, right? But they will include you. They will talk to you about it. They will consult with you. They will try to integrate you into their project as much as they can. And that's a big way that they will express their gratitude for you. And they'll also do another thing. They will try to give you makeovers and help you level up and open up doors and opportunities for you and really support you. When they value someone, they will try to help that person level up. They really are ambitious, not just for themselves, but for the people they care about. So they will try to help you become more ambitious and kind of help you get to the next level. And then when we move on to the aquatic type, the first aquatic type is a more emotionally expressive type. They are more emotionally reactive, both in terms of very positive emotions as well as very negative emotions. They really share their emotions very freely and very openly, right? So the aquatic type, the way that they handle emotions and they handle their day-to-day, it's very expressive, very open. And it means that if they are feeling gratitude, they will express it. They will say, oh, I'm so grateful for you. I value you so much. You're my best friend. You're the best thing that has happened to me. I love you so much. Thank you so much. I couldn't do this without you, etc., etc. They will be much more expressive than other elements, so there's generally not going to be any confusion there. But I will say sometimes their way of expressing gratitude is counterintuitive, because they will also do drama to have separation and reconciliation when they're feeling insecure, when they're feeling drained, when they're feeling a bit lost. And so what they can end up doing is creating drama and conflict, so that a few hours later, there's going to be that big hug, or there's going to be that makeup sex, or there's going to be that, open expression and really get people to lower their guard and kind of just open up more, right? So depending on the dynamic of the relationship, how it works, but just keep in mind that aquatic people are very expressive, but if they're not feeling very well emotionally and mentally, they might go to drama. But let me tell you something before you feel that means they don't love you. An aquatic type, they will not waste their time doing this type of drama with people they don't care about. So hold up, I know you're thinking, it's like, oh, don't love me so much then. But basically the way it works is they want to deepen the connections with people that they care about, people that they value, and that's one way that they know how to deepen the relationships. I know it's counterintuitive, I know it's strange, but just bear with them. And then the earthly type is a very caring type, a very nurturing type. They are nest builders. They are very generous. They put other people first, and their way of expressing gratitude is going to be more in line of, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to cook for you. I'm going to help you solve problems. I'm going to help you make your life better. I'm going to be there for you. They're not going to be as expressive. They're not going to be as like, "Ooh, I love you, I miss you," etc. They're going to be more like, "You know what? I'm here for you." And they can sometimes express themselves, but they also lean more towards introversion, meaning as they lean a little bit more to introversion, they sometimes need more time to open up and express themselves. Because remember, the more introverted a person is, the more time they need to process and analyze their thoughts before they can express themselves openly and confidently. The more extroverted someone is, the easier it is for them to speak before thinking even. And the aquatic type, even though they're in the middle, they're kind of the most emotionally expressive. So the earthly type, they can express themselves, but it takes a little longer for them to open up, and they're not going to do it with as much intensity and passion. It's going to be a little bit more kind of softer. I think a word that describes earthly people quite well is they take kind of a soft approach to a lot of things, a very gentle, smooth approach, and that also applies to the communication. So moving on, we have the airy type, and the airy type, what they do is how do they express gratitude? The thing about them is they are they tend to, they're people who, to give you a little context, they observe everything, they analyze everything, they process everything, they look at all the different shades of gray, they look at all the different variables, they often overthink things, so for them to express themselves can be quite hard because they're going to think about all the different ways of expressing it, all the different reactions to that, they're going to think about all the different feelings they have, and it can take a long time to process their thoughts. So sometimes there's a delayed reaction. They're people that, with the people that they're very confident with, they can express themselves quite openly. But with newer people that they've met more recently or that they haven't had the time to kind of deepen the relationship with, it's harder for them to express themselves. But I guess something very cool that, and a way to see them, the way they appreciate you, is whether or not they feel comfortable around you. Because they're people that really seek personal space, so sometimes they disconnect, sometimes they have to escape, and sometimes they can stop talking to you for months or years even if they get too mentally and emotionally overwhelmed. So it can be a challenge for them to handle that. But with people that they really care about and value, they're going to be more tolerant, they're going to be more patient, they're going to be more inclusive, and it's going to be easier for them to have that connection. And then finally, the metallic type is the most logical, structured, precise, to the point person. They're going to be the person that just says things straight up without filter. They're going to be the people that they don't express themselves so emotionally, but they definitely are very direct. And yes, sometimes they're going to communicate tough love to you. Sometimes they're going to be very strict with you. Sometimes they're going to be critical with you. Sometimes they're going to be how shall I say, they might spend time criticizing you in their way of protecting you and guiding you. So that's one thing that we have to look at, is how can we take that as, love and support. Uh-huh. So we have a comment here from. Oh yeah, so we have a comment here from someone who's been following us since the very beginning of season 1, and my girlfriend just joined us. Hey babe, thank you for joining us. Oh, we have to turn on her microphone. Hello, welcome.
Hi, baby.
Hello, thank you for being here. And so the comment is basically, where's Steve? Why isn't he on the podcast right now? He would be great on the podcast. I hope he's hearing. Yeah, he's in the back doing tech stuff for us. And also, where's my laptop? Yes, currently my laptop is used to stream this. In the previous season, I had it here in front of me, and I used it to monitor the chats. I'm still figuring out how we're going to do season 2 with that, because right now my laptop is being used as the control panel for the cameras and the microphones. So I'll probably find a solution for that. Probably for next week, I'll probably have a tablet ready. I'm working on a tablet right now. Basically, I have two half apart. So anyway, so we're talking about gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk.
Mm-hmm. What have you said?
I have just talked about the elements. I talked about how each element expresses gratitude without necessarily saying thank you, I value you. You know how an electric type might invite you on adventures, how a metallic type might criticize you for 3 hours, and that's their way of protecting you and guiding you, and how we don't all express gratitude the same way. So one thing that I want you guys to reflect on is how you receive gratitude from others, to be grateful for their support. And the other thing I want you to reflect on is how are you communicating gratitude? How do you communicate gratitude?
I just say it.
You're pretty direct about your expression of gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I've often told her is that she's one of the most grateful people that I know. But growing up, people would tell you the opposite.
Yeah, growing up, people would tell me absolutely the opposite, that I wasn't grateful for my life or the people around me, and just so I never considered myself as a grateful person. I would just consider myself that I just wanted more and more. And when I met you, I realized I am fiery. So everything that you explained to me about a fiery person, I was like, that's me. And growing up as a child, I was always told you should be grateful for this, you should be grateful for that. And in a way, I was grateful, but I was also a teenager. So it was really hard for me to express how grateful I was. And plus, I was dealing with depression. I was just starting to deal with anxiety. So, of course, that made people like say things like, you need to start being grateful with your life. Because a lot of people have this idea of, if you have depression, you're not grateful with your life, or you're not this and that. Inside of me, I was very grateful. I just didn't know how to show it because I was already dealing with a bunch of things in my mind. So you were like the first person to ever tell me, hey, you're the most grateful person ever. And I'm just like, what? That's the first time I've ever heard anything, because everyone before you and like friends and family, I've never heard once someone say you're actually grateful.
Yeah. It's interesting because exactly there you have to know how to spot gratitude. And for example, with Des, a lot of people would tell her that she was ungrateful because she had anxiety and depression and things like that would make her not take advantage of opportunities, would make her feel sad, would feel unhappy, and people interpret that unhappiness as lack of gratitude for the things she has. But the reality is, this is something I've noticed very clearly. It doesn't matter if you're the richest person in the world or the poorest person in the world. If you're stuck, you're not going to be happy. And a lot of people told you you're too ambitious and that you'd end up in a lot of trouble because of your ambition. You would end up in abusive relationships because of your ambition. Like, a lot of people said a lot of things about your ambition. But when we look at ambition, really, it's something that helps you level up. It helps you advance all the time. It helps you always progress. And that's something that helps you feel happier. But if you're stuck, it is a natural instinct to feel a bit more depressed or sad. And you had periods where you were quite stuck.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean you didn't value all the things that people had done for you. Because one of the ways that I could tell that she had a lot of gratitude was when she talked about people. I've never heard her talk bad about anyone.
Yeah, even people that I'm supposed to.
Even people that deserve it, she can't talk bad about. Even people that have abused her as a child, she can be like, there's this I don't like, this I really don't like, this is like this, like I can't see this person the same way again. It hurt me a lot. It's been very difficult to process, but I don't wish this person bad. And it's like, and you always go into like, I kind of forgive this person or understand this person, even when you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I'm overly empathetic. I think most people that know me know how empathetic I am and understanding I am, but you sometimes take it to an extreme. And I think one thing I saw was that a lot of people in your life that were doing a lot of cruel things or mean things, and you always defended them, you always stood up for them. And that to me was like, this person has gratitude. This person can see the good in people, can see the contributions that they've done, and can understand that why they did some of the bad stuff that they did. And that's the key. Understand the motivation, not the action.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people that have been in your life have done things for the right reasons, but in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Uh, there are so many. I don't even know which one to talk about specifically.
Well,
Do you
just
have
in general, because there is a general trend of people maybe overprotecting you or telling you how to live your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think one clear example was when I moved here. Like a lot of people were telling me I wanted to, like a year ago, or no, more or less than a year ago, like 9 months ago, more 8 months ago, I wanted to live on my own. I wanted to move out and have my own have my own apartment with roomies and stuff, and I wanted to experience that. I was just getting out of a crisis, like anxiety crisis and depression, and I was like, no work, like I wasn't working. I hadn't worked in a year. I was just stuck in my room for 6 months, and I had just gotten out of that period. And when I started to get better, when I moved into the city with my sisters, I think it took me a week to realize that I didn't want to live with them. I wanted to branch out. So obviously, the first instinct of a few family members was, why are you gonna move out? Like, you have your sisters there, you could work and you can save money instead of wasting money on rent or on other, like, you know. And the thing is that a lot of especially Mexican families see it that way. They all live together to save money, but that is also has like, that can also be bad because you never branch out, you never go out for opportunities. So when I first came here, I know that they meant good, and they were just trying to protect me, and they didn't know how I was going to handle a life without my family members, especially coming out of a period that I couldn't even move. I was sick, and it was just a very bad period for me. And they just didn't know how I was going to deal with being alone without them. And I know that they meant good, but if I would have listened to them, I would still be stuck in a city, or the side of the city that's not so pretty.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's good to be ambitious. Like, I've always been ambitious since I was less small, and I've always been criticized for that because I was always told that's bad. You can't be ambitious, blah, blah, blah. And so until I met you, I realized that being ambitious is actually good. My whole life, I thought that was something that was not a good part of me. And I was always like trying to hide it. Like, in a way, my personality would help me get to things. But until I met you, I realized that's actually good. And the best decision I ever made was grab my things and leave the hometown that I was in alone, and do that alone, and just try to figure out things without listening to everybody else and to the noise around me.
No, and there is some value in taking those risks and stepping away from certain comfort zone and certain reality that you've known for a long time and trying to build a new reality. I know because when I was living in Canada, I lived maybe 6 years in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and one day to another, I was like, "Hey, Steve, do you want to move across the country with me? There's this." We invited each other. Basically, I invited him to join a job opportunity that had the opportunity to move across the country, and we both kind of in different moments kind of pushed forward this idea. I was in a very abusive relationship at the time. I was in a very dark place mentally, and I needed to change. And Steve was also ready for change. So literally, it was like it happened very fast. Like within a month, we had planned everything. We had rented a big U-Haul truck, and we drove what, 5 6 days, 17 and a half hour days driving across Canada coast to coast pretty much. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. But there was many learning experiences. The first city we moved to, I hated it. Within a month, I couldn't stand it. So I had to leave that. Steve was like, I describe it as the armpit of Canada's asshole. I'm not gonna say where it is in case people are from there, but it was a bad time. At least for me, it didn't work. Basically, I arrived there in a sports car and in suits, and it was a place very far up north with oil rigs and things. And I would go dress casually, and people would ask me if I was going to a wedding. So I was like, I can't be myself here. So I got in my car, and then I drove down to Vancouver. Well, I drove down to Whistler, where I had some friends in the hospitality industry. And I spent a few weeks there thinking I was going to work at one of the hotels. But I realized I'm not very sporty. I don't really like sporty environments. And everyone there was sporty. And again, there I'm with a suit. And I'm like, I'm more of a city guy. So I was like, you know what? Vancouver is close by. So I drove to Vancouver. And by that time, I'd lost all my money. I'd lost all my resources. I had maxed out all my credit cards, and I literally I got to a point where I literally told my family, I can't afford to pay my phone. I can't afford a hotel. So you might not hear from me, and I'm going to sleep in my car. And then wonderful things happened, and people kind of loved my story and heard about my situation and invited me to sleep on a couch. And little by little, I got several jobs. And before I knew it, I was living downtown in a beautiful apartment in downtown Vancouver, but by myself. But yes, sometimes you have to take that risk of leaving things behind to build something new and explore possibilities. That gives you also a big confidence boost when you figure it out. In the beginning, it's rough because you have no idea what you're doing. But if you keep going and push through it, you feel more confident, you feel more valuable, you feel more capable. And I think a lot of people, they were afraid for you. Because I know my sister has anxiety, my sister's had depression, my sister's had all those things that you've dealt with. And one day to another, she was like, I'm moving to Japan. And I was like, what? Because she had never gone on a bus before. She had never gone to a supermarket by herself before. She had never done anything before, even talked on the phone. Like, she quit a job because she had to answer phones. I was like, how is she going to a country where she doesn't speak the language by herself? Across the side, on the other side of the world. And I was like, you're crazy. But it was the best thing that she ever did. It gave her a lot of confidence. It helped her a lot with her anxiety. Yeah, there were periods that were hell for her, but it really was worth it for her. So I think there are a lot of times where our family members really care and protect us, and they're grateful for us and they value us, but they limit us and cut our wings.
Yeah, I think they do it just so we would have like a safe. So we will play it safe. But honestly, if you play it safe, you're just going to be stuck in the same place. Yeah. And one thing that I always wanted to do was move to the city. And I remember lots of my friends telling me, you're not going to be able to move around the city. You have to use the metro. You have to use the buses. And, you know, the city's packed. That's not your life. You're not going to be able to handle it. And especially people that knew that I had anxiety. But one thing is that I really don't like people to tell me what to do. Yeah. So the one thing that motivated was like, I'm going to prove all of you wrong. And I remember people telling me like, you're going to have to use public transportation. Like, you can barely handle the one in our city. What makes you think that you'll handle one in a huge, massive city with like a lot of people? And honestly, ever since I moved here, I haven't used public transportation once.
No, you get driven around in a Cadillac Escalade.
Yeah. So I was like, I could be back if I would have listened, I could be back in my hometown using that public transportation and living not the best life. I mean, a good life, obviously, because I'm very grateful how I grew up. And compared to other people, I had a pretty awesome life. But I've always wanted more. Yeah. Like, I'm grateful with what I have, but I always want more.
Yeah, never mistake ambition or anxiety for lack of gratitude. I think that's something very important. And yeah, sometimes it can feel that way when you don't understand what goes on in other people's minds. That's why I opened up with expressing how different elements communicate gratitude. The other thing I also want you to reflect on is how people with different contexts, realities, goals, challenges, traumas express gratitude. And I want you to look at how you're expressing gratitude right now. Are you taking the time to say thank you? Like, Are you taking time to express gratitude and feel the gratitude? Because it's very easy to feel resentment for things, frustration for things, and feel like that person doesn't care or doesn't value you. But there's really a lot to be said about taking the time to feel grateful. For example, today you weren't feeling too well.
No, this morning was terrible for me.
And I could easily have gone like, oh my goodness, she doesn't care. She doesn't put in the effort. She knows how important this is, blah, 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 blah. Or I can be like, you know what? I'm grateful that despite her having felt really bad the last 2 days, she has been doing her makeup and she's been doing her effort to get on here, and she hasn't said outright no. And I'm grateful now that, after being able to get to a better state, she now is on here with us. And that's the thing. Are you looking at the things that can be a little frustrating or difficult in certain moments, or are you looking at the effort that people are putting into things? And I think with you, because of your anxiety and your depression and things like that, sometimes people around you have had to be more patient. And when they haven't been patient, they have just felt that you weren't grateful, and they haven't been grateful for your process and your effort, because they can't even see your effort sometimes, because they don't understand the internal battles that it sometimes takes to just get out of bed when you deal with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And the moment that you understand this person is fighting battles every day, this person is really doing an effort, like that, you start valuing every little thing more. Like every time you cook a meal, I go, wow. Every time you go to a store by yourself, I go, wow. Like simple things like that, because when we started dating, you couldn't get into a store by yourself. You couldn't get in an elevator. You couldn't turn on the stove because everything got you scared.
Yeah, I was terrified of everything. I couldn't even stand in line. I was scared to go to places with a lot of people. Grocery stores, I would be there like 2 minutes and I would just tell you I need to get out. And now it's like my hobby.
Now it's like, when can we go to the grocery store? I haven't been to the grocery store in days. I can't believe that a year ago I hated grocery stores, and now it's like my favorite thing. When can we go to the grocery store? Literally, that was our conversation yesterday.
Yeah, that was, yeah. But I guess I took baby steps. And one thing that we have to remember, that having anxiety and depression, I guess some things that it's hard for me. Like, for example, this morning I felt terrible for not getting on that exactly the time that I had to get on, and I was just trying to make myself feel better, trying to get better. And there was that little voice in my head that, as growing up, I was always told, if you're not going to do something right the first time, then just don't do it. And there was still that, like, I was just sitting there and I'm like, you know what, just, I wasn't even there when it started, so why should I go for it? And that's one thing that, for anxiety and with people with mental disorders, need to understand, that do things halfway. Like, do them halfway. I was always told growing up, don't do it if you're not gonna finish it, or if you're gonna do it incomplete, just don't do it. And that frustrates me, because till this day I still have that little voice in the back of my head be like, why are you doing it if it's not complete? It comes with little things, as like doing exercise. If I don't do my full routine, I feel terrible, because why am I going to do it if I'm not doing the whole thing? Or or big things like this, like on the podcast, if I'm not here from the beginning, or if I'm feeling terrible from the start, it's going to be terrible throughout the whole thing. And sometimes it takes a lot of me to get out of that mindset, because I've been taught with that mindset ever since I was small. Like, that's the way that people told me things should be. But recently I've noticed that do things halfway. That's what I noticed the last time I got out of my anxiety crisis that I was in for a year. Is I started with little things, going halfway with taking a shower by myself. Maybe I was sitting down on a plastic chair, and showering, but that was something halfway. Like, maybe I didn't use like the scrubbing thingy because I was too weak, but at least I got soap on my body, and that's enough sometimes. Or just doing things halfway, that's okay. That's what's gonna get you to do things completely. And that's something that really, really helps me.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very, very good point. You have probably people in your life right now that let you down a lot, and you instantly might go to resentment. You might go to, this person doesn't care enough, is doing enough effort. Why is this person even bothering? This person obviously can't do it or doesn't want to do it. Why do they even try? It's not about that. It's about, whoa, this person is trying. This person is stepping out of the comfort zone. This person is learning new things.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people don't understand how hard it is for other people to do things. Like, and one thing that I feel that our relationship has been um one thing that I wanted, how can I say this? Yesterday before the podcast, I knew that we were going to talk about this topic. And one thing that came through my mind was like, people are going to say, "Oh, you guys only have a year together," because our anniversary is next month. um, so obviously the first year it's beautiful, it's relaxing because you're just getting to know each other. But wait 5 years, wait 6 years, and then tell us how it's gonna be. And that's what I was afraid of coming on to this morning, because I was like, maybe people are not gonna think so seriously because we've only been dating for a year. But in this whole entire year, you're my first relationship since I was like, I don't know, a teen, like 11 or 12 years old.
Preteen then.
Preteen. That has lasted more than 3 months. And I've never had a relationship that has been more than 3 months. Why? Because I've always argued. Always argued with people. I was very toxic. And I just simply, people did not understand how my mind would function. And with you, yeah, we've been a year together, but we haven't gotten in a single argument. We haven't yelled at each other, and we haven't fought the way that I've fought with other people before you. And that's I'm like, is this the way that it's supposed to be? Like, this is too, like, it's easy. Isn't it supposed to be harder? And I've grew up in an environment where I would see like yelling and stuff and arguing and just like it was just not the best environment. And every single couple that I knew as I was growing up, no.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's why as a young adult, I was like, I'm not having relationships. I can date people, but I do not want relationships, because I would see it as growing up and as a teen, and I was like, I don't want that. And when I tried to have relationships, they were either very controlling, or they would say one thing and they would be okay with one thing, but they would think a whole nother way, and they would do things that were just completely different for what they were saying, or they would say they would agree on. And so for me, it was very difficult. And one thing about me is that I just don't like to be told what to do. Like, I always say that. And I guess sometimes for my relationships in the past, that has been a problem, because especially teens, boys, when they're in their teenage years, they like controlling us.
It's not an age thing. It's an insecurity thing.
Yeah, it's an insecurity thing. And till this day, I remember like a year before I met you, I dated someone that wanted me to be exactly the way his mom was.
Ooh, that's fun.
And I did not like that. And I was very grateful for him, because he helped me in a lot of things. But sometimes another thing we need to know is that if being grateful doesn't mean that you have to be with that person if that person is not for you, if that person's toxic. Like, one thing is being completely grateful and stuff, but other thing, don't let gratitude keep you in that.
Never justify any relationship that doesn't work for you. Never reinforce to yourself that you can't find anything better for you. Never get stuck with something that doesn't work. That doesn't mean you can't improve relationships and that you can't save relationships. The topic of today is using gratitude to heal relationships. And you can currently be in a relationship that currently is kind of very tough and difficult. And if you take the time to express gratitude and make people feel special, what happens? They become less intense, they become less controlling, they become less annoying, because when people know their value, they limit you less, they control you less. But when people feel like they aren't being valued, they become much more forceful, intense, annoying, and over the top. So gratitude is not just a generous and a kind act, it's a very practical tool to make relationships have more harmony. And one of the things that we are very good at with each other is whenever the other person is feeling bad, we basically give the other person a pep talk with a lot of gratitude, with I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful for you. It's impressive everything that you do. Don't be so hard on yourself. Look at this that you did. Look at this that you did. You're badass. Like those are pep talks that we give each other very regularly.
Yeah.
And that's something that makes the other person feel less like shit. It makes the other person feel more capable. It makes the other person feel more valued, and it will make them less argumentative. It will make them less jealous and less controlling, because when they know their value, they're not gonna be acting like dumb, desperate, crazy people. And actually, next week's topic, we're gonna be talking about that. Next week's topic is exactly having self-gratitude and seeing your value, understanding your value, so that you don't end up being so controlling, so intense, so annoying, so over the top, and so you don't destroy relationships because of that. But today I want to focus more on how can you heal relationships with gratitude. And first part is understanding and receiving the gratitude from others so that you don't force things yourself. But the next thing is learning how to communicate gratitude for the other person based on their personality, their context, their reality. For you, being fiery, being told that you should not be ambitious, that's not the best way of expressing gratitude or support, because that's literally invalidating you.
Yeah.
But they did it with love,
They just
didn't take into account your personal context.
Yeah, and the way if I wouldn't be ambitious, I wouldn't be here where I am.
Exactly.
And so yeah, don't listen to people.
Don't listen to people, period.
Just don't listen. If you want to do something, just do it, regardless if you have anxiety, regardless if you have depression or anything. Just don't listen to people. Do what you need to do, because even if you make a mistake, you'll learn from it.
Yeah.
And if you just follow what people say, it's just gonna be terrible.
Yeah, one guideline I have for when and how to listen to people is identify, is this person taking into account my personality, my context, my traumas, and my goals? Yes or no? Is this person guiding me based on my reality and my context, or based on their traumas and their insecurities and their fears?
Or the very important one, do you want to be that person?
Or do you want to be the person that they want you to be?
Yeah, because like one thing I remember, when I was started living here, I had a group of friends, and they would tell me things, and I'd just be like, and sometimes it would get to me, and I remember I would communicate the things to you. And one advice that I always follow from now on is that I don't take advice from people that I don't want my life to be
like theirs.
I don't want that. So that helped me a lot, and that was a big eye opener for me, because a lot of people that were saying things that were not the best things ever, I looked at their lives and I'm like,
a lot of your friends are in toxic relationships.
Well, I don't have friends anymore, but
you do.
That's the reason why I don't have a lot of friends.
A lot of the people that you confided in more so back then and have distanced yourself a little bit now, they are in toxic relationships, and they're justifying their reality. They have narratives like, "Ooh, I'm turning 30, so I can't find anything better. I'm old now. Oh,
I need to have my life together in a certain age.
Together by a certain age. I need to get married and have kids before this age. I'm a woman, and therefore I need to do this, and this way." And like, there are a lot of people that would put ideas in your head, and you'll be like,
one thing about me that I like, though, is that if I don't want to live a certain life, like for example, having kids at a before 30, or being married even before 35 or 30, for me, that's a big no. Yeah. I've always been, this is what I was telling your mom the other day when we had like this little hangout the other day. And so I was telling her, I don't want to get married before 30 or 35. Why? Because right now I'm 20, I'm 22. And when I hit 30, I'm going to be a completely different person. Yeah. I don't want to have kids before 35, because I know that I'm going to be a completely different person. And right now, I don't want kids. No. But I know that maybe 30 or 35 is going to hit, and maybe I'm going to want kids by then. But I don't want to be stuck or I don't want to be in a toxic relationship, or be in a place that I'm not happy throughout those years where I'm finding myself, you know?
I think the key is don't settle.
Yeah, just don't settle.
Don't settle. Yes, sometimes you got to make compromises. Sometimes you need to have conversations with yourself and with others, what is really essential for me and what is negotiable, right?
Yeah.
There are certain things that are flexible. It's like, don't be so rigid that you can't connect with anyone and adapt in any way to anyone. Adapting to people can be generous if you do it as a generous act and not as a desperate act. But I think there's a lot of value in looking at, okay, what do I want? How do I communicate my desires and my goals to other people? And how do I build a support network of people that understand me and value me? And that way things are smoother. And one thing that happens when we feel that people aren't grateful enough for us is we start forcing things. We start over justifying. We start over explaining ourselves. And that's one thing that you stop me on my track sometimes, because sometimes as a leader, if I feel that people are not grateful enough for me, understand my process enough, I can spend hours explaining exactly how and why I came to that idea to do it that exact way. And sometimes I waste a lot of time justifying my actions or explaining myself to my team. And yes, it's important to provide transparency and clear communication.
But if they don't want to listen.
But there are some people exactly that in certain moments aren't ready to listen or ready to understand. And you just got to lead by example and then show them, once you've figured it out, look, this is what I was talking about that you couldn't see back then. Sometimes you got to take that step.
But also know that no matter how much gratitude you show, if people don't want to be in your life, if people don't want to heal a relationship, it will not heal.
No.
You can try, but don't waste your time if they don't want to heal the relationship, either friendship or a relationship. And one thing for me is I don't have patience when it comes to relationships. Like, if you mess up one time, it's like, okay, it's not the same afterwards. And I don't like it. I've had plenty of relationships in the past where I do want to fix things. I do explain myself and stuff, but it comes to a point that it's like, why am I even trying? And it's difficult for someone that doesn't want to understand, someone that doesn't see how grateful I am to understand me. And one thing with you, I guess, is that I just tell you everything that I feel, and you don't get upset, you don't yell at me, you don't tell me that I'm ungrateful or just get over it or something. You actually sit there and listen. And even though through my panic attacks and stuff I can sometimes say that you don't listen, but I know you do. And I guess that's one thing that's really helped my relationship right now, because we actually listen to each other. And that's one thing that right now a lot of relationships don't have. That you don't listen. And it's easy, like, for people that have anxiety and depression, our relationship is really hard because a lot of us have insecurities that we still are dealing with. And sometimes it's very difficult for us
Newsflash for you, most people in the world have insecurities.
Well, yeah. A lot of people have it. But I just love how you're able to deal with my anxiety, with my depression, and how you really don't judge me in everything that happens through or that goes through my mind. It's normal for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is, if you want to heal a relationship and really be grateful for people, you need to understand that person, or at least make an effort. So if I didn't understand your anxiety or your depression or your ambition or your context or how your life was growing up, it would be very easy for me to judge things. It would be very easy for me to feel like you're not ungrateful. It would be very easy for me to go to dark places in my mind very quickly and deteriorate the relationship. But by being curious and trying to understand you, I can support you better. And that's something that you want to have healthier, stronger relationships. Start with curiosity. Start with curiosity and that's why when I explain the elements, that's trying to trigger some curiosity of, how do how do the people that I care about function? But it's not just personality psychology. It's also individual context. It's their goals, their traumas, their fears, their insecurities, their reality, their resources, their current stressors, their current motivators. All those things are relevant factors. And for example, with you, the fact that I know what ambitions you have, the traumas you have, the fears you have, the mental health challenges that you have. when I know that, it's like, okay, I can deal with that. But if I don't understand it and I just go, that doesn't make sense because I don't do that, then there's no real dialogue and then there's no mutual support.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, in the past, I wasn't as open as I am with you. Like, I would hide my mental disorders because I was taught from a young age that people don't need to know what's going on through your mind. People don't need to know your personal problems. And you were the first person that I actually taught. Like, I think you're you're the most person that knows most about me.
Yeah.
And I like it because we have that communication. And I wasn't, in the past, in my relationships, I would hide things, and they were just because of certain traumas that I had or certain things that people would tell me around myself, around me. And you, when I came in, you knew that there were certain things that were off about me. You knew that there were certain things that I wasn't ready to talk about, but you waited until I was ready to tell you. And you gave me enough confidence to tell me, hey, like, I understand this, I understand that. And that's what really helped me opening up to you. And I just feel like communication is key. Like, your partner is not going to read your mind. Even though sometimes I tell you that I know that you read minds. But you got to understand that your partner's not going to read your mind, and you have to communicate. I'm having a panic attack. I'm having this. I'm having that. And this is the reason why. If your partner, it's up to your partner from there to listen or not. Like, that's their choice. And if they decide to listen and walk away, then girl, get out of there. But
no, and another thing I want you to emphasize is there are times where you're going to have temporary setbacks in your relationship. You're going to have disagreements, arguments, frustrations, and you can go towards that frustration and you can fuel the fire, or you can be like, look at all what this person has done for you and contributed to you over the years, over the last few months. Cut them some slack.
That's what Stacy does.
Yeah, that's one of her voices in her head. You know, sometimes you got to cut people some slack. And gratitude can help you do that. I mean, as a leader here at the office, I get so frustrated every day with stuff people do. But when I remember, you know what, this person did this, and this, and has contributed this, and fixed this, and solved this, and done this, and stepped out of the comfort zone here. Okay, I'll cut them some slack.
And your partner, also with that, your partner is allowed to have bad days.
Yes.
They are allowed to have really, really bad days. Yesterday for you and I, it was a terrible day. We haven't had a tough day like that in a long time. And maybe, yes, I was frustrated a little bit with you because I was having a terrible day and you were having a bad day, and it was just like, it wasn't, we were trying to help each other, but either for me it wasn't like the help that I wanted, or for you it wasn't the help that you wanted. But one thing that kept us alive yesterday, and it kept us from killing each other, was I would see with little things that you were trying. And Stacy was there and telling me, look, he bought you chips. He got this. He took you this. And little things like that. Even though my other voices were just all like, he doesn't care, blah, blah, blah. I was sitting there and I was just listening to Stacy, and I was just trying to focus on what she was saying. And sometimes I go silent and I don't say a single word, but that's because I'm fighting with myself internally. And I communicate that to you. I always tell you, I'm not giving you a silent treatment. It's just that my brain is so loud right now. My mind is so loud right now that honestly, I cannot concentrate to anything that you are saying to me or anything that I want to say to you. So I always tell you, and I communicate that with you, I'm not giving you the silent treatment. It's just me trying to listen to Stacey.
That's important. You have to communicate why you do the things you do the way you do it, so that they aren't misinterpreted with past traumas. And we're both very good at communicating. These are the past traumas I have. So just being careful when you do this. It reminds me of this, even though you're doing it differently for different reasons. Know that that's a button that I have. And communication is key to healing relationships. And gratitude for what the small things is key. And being able to cut people some slack is key. And yes, don't put all the responsibility on the other person. Because right now with the pandemic here in the office, we all have days where we are drained, where we're emotionally, mentally exhausted. We're having a hard time. Obviously, there's more financial strain during the pandemic. There's more uncertainty. There's more fear. We are robbed of regenerative activities and environments. So each person has days that are rough. And sometimes we expect other people to fix our problems.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. Yes, build a support network where we help each other, but there are going to be days where you aren't able to help the way that other people need, and there are going to be days where the people that you need aren't able to help the way you need, and you got to cut people some slack. And that was yesterday. I was in a bad place mentally, you were in a bad place mentally, and it was just like, but you know what? We can get through this. And we got through it. I mean, it was, when we say we had a bad day, it was a bad day because we both felt not so good, but it wasn't because there's a lot of drama. Like, it was just like, it's tough today.
I
Like,
was physically drained and just wasn't feeling good
Yeah.
in general, and you were just more like
mentally drained. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just we didn't argue. we actually don't argue, and it's weird because yesterday, for normal couples with what we went through, they
Right.
would throw each other out the window.
No, it's when you have common goals and you have clarity and understanding on where you're moving towards, you also have more self-control to avoid saying or doing things that will hurt that possible future.
Yeah.
But when you have insecurities, you go straight to the button, or straight to saying the thing from resentment.
Yeah.
But don't go there. If every time you have an instinct, I have resentment, I want to make this person feel like shit, I want to make this person apologize, I want to make this person realize what they did, switch something in your mind and go, I want to make this person feel grateful. And like, you and I are very good at that. When we are not mentally drained or emotionally drained, what do we do? When the other person feels bad or is messing up, we give them a pep talk. We give them a pep talk and we're like, you can do this, you're badass, look at this, don't be so hard on yourself. Instead of being like, you're shit, why aren't you doing this?
Or just invalidating the fact that you can have a bad day and that's okay. You can take a day off.
Yeah.
So I think that's what helps us a lot, and the fact that we've been a year together and we haven't gotten into a certain argument or haven't like really yelled at each other and actually argued and stuff. It's still very new to me. It is.
I think there's something to emphasize. Don't play zero-sum games in your relationship. Don't have it where for you to win, the other person has to lose, or the other person has to sacrifice themselves for you, or you have to sacrifice yourself for them.
Yeah.
No, sometimes you got to make certain compromises. Sometimes you have to negotiate terms. Sometimes you have to come to mutual agreements where you got to step out of your comfort zone. It's not about being stubborn or forceful, but everyone must win.
Yeah.
The relationship.
And one thing you can in the relationship that's key is don't keep score. Like, I did this for you, and now I'm gonna do this. Do not keep score.
No.
Like,
it's not a competition.
Yeah, it's not a competition. Who does what for each other?
It's the fastest way to feel like shit.
Yes, and
make the other person feel like shit.
One thing that I've always heard, like a couple friends that I've had in the past, or family members, is they like to keep score. Like, you did this to me, now I'm gonna do this back.
It's not transactional.
It's not. In a relationship, you don't keep score, and that's one way to end your relationship. If you want to end your relationship, keep score, and trust me, it's gonna be hell. But one thing that I've learned with you, and you're the first person that I have that I don't keep score.
Yeah.
Like, if you mess up with something, I communicate it to you and I tell you this is how I feel, but I don't go the next day and do something worse just so that you would feel what I felt. Like, no, I don't do that. That's one thing that I've learned with you not to do.
Yeah, a relationship together, you should be greater than the sum of all parts. Meaning that, like, you might be, it's a mathematical equation. 5 plus 5 together should equal 50 or 100, because you should multiply each other's capabilities.
Yeah.
You should not be like, okay, I grow and you go down. No, together you should be greater. And when it comes to relationships, exactly, keeping score is the easiest way to devalue people, make them feel like shit, making them force things, making them rebel, making them do revenge acts. And it's the most easy way to get into a very immature dynamic. But if you manage to not keep score and actually just be grateful for every little thing and every little step with patience, you can build something wonderful.
And do whatever you have to do, whatever your partner asks you to do. do it because you want to do it, because you want to help them.
Out of generosity.
Not because later on, a week later or a month later, you're going to be like,
expectation.
yeah, I helped you with this last month. Now you need to help me with this. Like, no, maybe yes, negotiate, but don't not expect to get things back after you do certain things. Like, don't expect things.
A generous act is without expectations.
Exactly.
Like, if you're going to be generous with someone, give without expecting anything in return. And give not because you're trying to build something. Like, for example, in our relationship, we're very generous with each other within our resource and capabilities. But I think we're generous with each other because we actually care about the other person's well-being and future more so than what are they going to contribute to us in the future.
Yeah.
Like, I am of the mentality of like, I'm going to keep boosting you up no matter what the future holds for us.
Yeah.
And that is beautiful. But yes, if I were like, I'm going to do this, this, and this so she can give me this, it's like, ugh.
And you're the first person that I know in my whole entire life that does not expect anything in return. And that was hard for me to understand at first because I was always told people do things not for free. They always want something in return. And it was hard for me. Until this day, it's a bit hard for me to understand that what you and your team and your family do for me, they don't expect anything in return. They don't. And that's sometimes hard for me to understand, but it gets easier every day. And you set the bar so high at this point that it's like, if any other, like in the future I ever want to be in another relationship, I'm just gonna be bored, or I'm just gonna be like
or you'll have more self-respect
or
and
and then like 3 days later I'm just gonna be like, you know what, it's not working.
Like, one thing we got to look at, and exactly the thing about not having expectations, it makes everything so much easier because it's easier to receive something when you know it comes without expectations.
Yeah.
But it's hard to receive something when you know I'm going to have to repay the favor later. When are they going to come charge me? Like, and how are they going to charge me? Is it going to be with drama? Is it going to be with money? Is it going to be with what? How are they going to charge me for this? And that's not how things should work. It's literally should be like, you know what? I can give this. It makes sense to give this to this person. I'm going to do it. And one thing that I learned very early on, but I recently kind of got it much more firmly kind of drilled into my mind. It's being generous makes you feel better.
Yeah.
So when you feel like shit, if you can go help someone, you're like, okay, I'm actually better off than I thought.
That actually helps us
a lot.
It helps earthly people regenerate a lot.
Yes, yeah, and we both have an earthly element, so we are always looking at how can we help people. You're right now looking at how can I get face masks to more people? How can I give classes to more people? You're always looking at like people in poor neighborhoods, like how can I help them? And actually, one of the before we even started really dating, you mentioned you had a student that was having a tough time, blah, 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 and you couldn't talk to him and get through to him. And I was like, let's make him feel special and make him feel like you actually care, but make the whole class. So I actually sent you money to take your whole class to the movies.
Yeah, the field trip.
The field trip. And that was before we even were dating. And it was without expectations, just like, you know what? It makes sense to me. Let's do this.
That was beautiful because these kids were from a school that was in a very poor, dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I took the job because I wanted to take one step at a time. I was trying to get out of anxiety, depression. I took the job and I was like, okay, I want to see what it's like to go back to where I went to school, because I used to go in that neighborhood to school a few blocks from there, and I just wanted to give back. So I was like, okay, maybe they don't pay as much as other schools, but it's going to be fun. I'll learn a lot of things. And I remember this certain student, a lot of them had this mentality that they were just going to finish high school, or they were going to barely finish high school. And that was it for them. Yeah. They kept telling me like, teacher, what do you expect? We live in this neighborhood. We don't go to college. We don't go to universities. And I remember them hearing all of this. I remember hearing all of this and I was just like, what? And I wanted to help these kids, and these kids helped a lot with my anxiety and a lot with the depression, even though they didn't know it at that time. But they helped a lot. And that field trip, for a lot of them, they had never been to the movies ever because they came from low income families. So it was a first time for them to go to that mall, because I remember I even took them to like a really nice mall in my hometown. It was like really pretty near the beach, and they were having so much fun and they were so happy. And seeing their faces like, oh, I've never been here. I've heard about this place, but I've never been here. And that helped me. The way that I helped those kids was really nice, and just telling them, they were just like, we're not going to go to college and stuff. And I was like, hey, my sisters and I came from this neighborhood. We didn't grow up here, obviously. We grew up in the US, but when we got here from the US, we went to these schools, and this is a school nearby, and this isn't a good school. But I'm like, my sisters are in the best university of the country, and they literally beat I don't know how many thousands and thousands of students to get into that university. And I'm like, and look at them now. They're in one of the most they're in this awesome university, and they're making a good thing. And I'm like, and they came from here. They worked their ass off, and they're one of the smartest people in the country, because not just anybody gets into that university. And I told them, you set your mind to something and you will get it, regardless of the family you come with, regardless of the money. Because at that time, when my sisters were trying to get into that school, we didn't have enough money. We could, but my sister's like, we want to go to that school. And so it was pretty awesome to motivate these kids and to change their perspective, at least for a little bit, and to let them know that you could be poor, you can be from a low income
Every
family.
single person in this office that works for us here at Develop Your Element full time in the office comes from a very low income family, and from many of them have dropped out of either college or even high school, and basically it doesn't matter where you come from, it's about where you're going. And it's about building the support network of people that actually believe in you,
and the effort.
And exactly, one of the when it comes to generous acts, and this goes back to gratitude. I swear there's a logical reason for this tangent. It's sometimes we feel that everything is transactional with gratitude and generosity, but it's not. And the moment the easiest way to learn it is to do a generous act to help someone. When we started, like when we did that thing of taking her whole class to a field trip, we hadn't even met in person. I think we were just kind of
I hadn't even met you in person.
We were just talking, and we really liked each other, and there was a lot of like, you know what, this is interesting. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna let's, these students, they need us, let's help them. And I was going through hell because my grandfather was dying. You were going through hell because you had anxiety, depression, a lot of different things. And it was literally like, how can we help other people? And it was also for us to feel better about ourselves, because we were in a dark place ourselves. And it's not that we had any expectation or anything from them. It was just like, it feels good to give back. It feels good to help people, because it's not an exchange. It's it feels good. And if you're one of those people who believes that people are only generous if they want something, try giving back, try helping someone, try changing someone's life, try taking someone out of a poor neighborhood and giving them an opportunity. Try that. You will feel amazing. And that when you learn that people can be generous without expectations, when gratitude and generosity can be done without expectations, without keeping track, without keeping score, and you can just give when you can, how you can, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it, as long as it comes from, you know,
your life will change completely if you see life that way. If you just think people are just gonna do things because they need something, you're not gonna
trust anyone.
You're not gonna trust anybody, and you're going to attract those negative people. And ever since I met you, I've been able to kind of push away the people that bring negative things to my life. And it's easier for me to just drop people than it was for me a year ago. Today it was just like this. Nowadays it's like, okay, this person is saying this, it's easy for me to just drop new people that are coming in and saying all these negative things, because you have taught me that I don't want their lives, and why should I even listen to them? And I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody, but I really don't have time for that energy. Like, I've already dealt with it my whole life, and it's like, okay, you know what? Bye.
People who are stuck or insecure will put you down or invalidate your path because they might be competitive with you or they might not believe it's possible. And you have to build that mental filter. It's like a spam filter in your mind, and also spam filter with friendships or fake friends. Like you got to build.
Yes, and if you let yourself keep yourself in those toxic relationships, people will bring you down with them. So you have to learn to say no. I no longer want to be part of this relationship. I did what I could.
Yeah.
But if you keep tolerating toxic traits or toxic this and that, and people make you feel bad or guilty, that's what toxic people do. They make you feel guilty about certain things, but they don't see their actions. So just know that, yes, show gratitude towards them. If they don't change, that's okay, but move on, because if you stay there, they will drag you down with you, and you will find someone better. I can't stop saying that. You will find someone better. You will find someone exactly the way that you want them to be. Yes, they will have some things that you won't like. Yes, you will have some things, little things that maybe, but you will find that person. Because as I was growing up, everybody told me the person that you want doesn't exist. And then I met Yannick and I was like, yes, he does. And you got to know, as a person, you will find the friendship, the relationships that you want. You just have to be patient, and you have to not listen to the negative.
Rush. We live up until 100 now. We have modern medicine that lets us literally live much longer lives. We don't have to use the mentality that our ancestors that would live to 40 had to use. So take your time. There's no rush. The biological clock, who cares? You can have my aunt and uncle they both had kids at 50. Their first kid they had at 50, and perfectly healthy. The kid, awesome kid.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of technology nowadays that literally can help the kid. Like, we're no longer living in 50 years ago where there was.
You have more time than ever.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic now, even more time than ever.
You literally have free time. Like, the world is giving us free time.
So no rush. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so hard on others. Don't keep score. Don't keep track. And just be grateful the way you can. Express gratitude in the way other people can receive. Remember, there are different elements and different contexts. Don't press people's buttons when you know that they have them. Be curious. Try to understand them. And next week, we're going to be talking about something very important, which is self-gratitude. A little bit of a continuation on this topic so that you know your value. David, do you want to share with everyone? Let's do this.
Hey there, have you found yourself in a not so good mental state lately? Are you burning a lot of bridges? Are you being too hard on yourself, too hard on others, trying to control everything, micromanage everything? Are you becoming more jealous, more conflict prone? Are you justifying your actions and walking around, like a little lost puppy looking for love and attention and validation? Are you really feeling empty inside right now and needing someone or something to fill that void? But in the search of filling that void, you're destroying relationships and you're destroying your confidence. I ask this because right now with the quarantine, I'm seeing this in a lot of people that I care about. And I'm even seeing it a little bit in me sometimes, where I start devaluing myself, I start being too hard on myself, and I start justifying my actions or explaining myself too much or controlling things too much. And I catch myself being like, whoa, what am I doing? And it's something that it's very simple. It's because I haven't taken the time to implement enough self-gratitude. I talk a lot about gratitude. Gratitude is essential. It can heal relationships. It can really resolve conflicts. It can prevent conflicts. It can reduce intensity. Gratitude is one of those very simple things that can change your life. But we often forget to implement it with ourselves. We often are so good at valuing things that are hard for us. So when we see someone do something that is hard for us, we go, oh, this is wonderful, I'm so grateful. But the things that we do every day, this simple battles, so the big battles that we have, the big challenges that we overcome, the lessons that we learn, the mistakes that we make, the steps that we take, often we just minimize those. Or we don't even see them. Or we see them as something bad. But taking the time and consciously celebrating your achievements, celebrating your contributions, thanking yourself for not giving up, thanking yourself for being perseverant, thanking yourself for being resilient, thanking yourself for taking that extra step, thanking yourself for being curious or taking that leap of faith, thanking yourself for being willing to fail. Simple things. Just taking that time can change your entire perspective, and it can get you unstuck and give you the confidence that you need to level up and try new things, take more risks, improve your life, improve your career, improve your relationships. And I promise your relationships, they will be so much better because you'll be much less controlling, jealous, dramatic, and all of that. Your projects will flow so much faster because you won't be forcing things, justifying things, or minimizing other people's input, because there will be harmony and confidence enough to look at things from different angles and not doubling down on things out of pure stubbornness. The moment you have self-gratitude and you acknowledge your contributions and self-worth, everything in your life gets easier. And it's a very simple thing, but we often skip it because we've been told that we shouldn't be arrogant, that we shouldn't be selfish, that we shouldn't brag, and that we should be modest, that we shouldn't stand out, etc., etc., etc. But the reality is, if you do these things right, you can uplift and inspire people. But yes, if you do it wrong, you put people down. And that's the key. Just learn how to uplift yourself while uplifting others. This is not a zero-sum game where for you to win, other people have to lose. When you stop playing zero-sum games in your life and create win-win situations and celebrate everyone's wins, but especially take the time to celebrate your wins, everything gets better. So my challenge for you during this quarantine is, how can you implement more self-gratitude during this quarantine? If you want to tackle this in your life, if you're fed up and done with all the bullshit that is coming from your insecurities and your inability to celebrate your achievements, contributions, and value, join us this Sunday, 11 a.m. Central Time, on a live transmission of our podcast, Develop Young and Unplugged, where we're going to be talking about this exact topic. We're going to be covering for an hour several different strategies that you can implement to change your life and to be more grateful for yourself and to stop forcing things and to have more win-win situations and more harmony in your relationships. It's going to be a wonderful podcast. It's such an important topic that I can't wait to share with you guys. So tune in on Sunday. I'll see you there, and the link will be in the description. So have a good one.
Okay, so we're back. That's basically a little ad we threw together that we're going to be sharing for next week's podcast. But yeah, next week we're going to be talking about self-gratitude. And yeah, there's a comment here from Manatee saying, jealousy is fear of abandonment. And exactly, it's really, people who are jealous and controlling, they're fearful. And it's their fear, it's their insecurities. And that's why next week's podcast is going to focus on self-gratitude. When you learn to acknowledge your value, when you learn to feel grateful for yourself, when you can pat yourself in the back, when you can acknowledge your contributions to others and your value to others, you won't feel fearful. For example, in our relationship, just as a kind of finishing off point, and we'll wrap up, we're not jealous or controlling of each other. And a lot of people don't understand why we give each other so much liberty.
Yeah.
And we basically say we have an open relationship. Not that we really act on it, but it's just we give each other the liberty to live our lives to the fullest, and we don't revise each other's cell phones, we don't control each other, we don't limit each other, we don't tell each other which friends you can have or who you can do what with, because we know our value within what we bring to the relationship. And that's what I say all the time, is like, I know you're not going to find someone that contributes what I contribute in this relationship, so do whatever you want with whomever you want, because I know my value. And it's not to sound arrogant, it's literally just to not limit or control the other person, and to also feel good about yourself. You know, I feel good about my contributions in this relationship, so I don't need to limit and control you. But I know that when I feel more insecure, when I feel more fearful of abandonment, fearful of failure, fearful of something, I become more controlling or more I go to a darker place mentally, and I also manage my relationships not as well. But when I'm confident in my relationships, I don't control as much. And that's something that we have to make the other person feel confident so that they don't control us as much. And we have to make ourselves feel confident so we don't control the other person as much. Yeah. And that's why we focus so much on giving each other pep talks, uplifting each other, so that we don't feel fearful of abandonment. We don't threaten with breakups. Yeah. We don't have fights where we're like, we're going to break up, blah, 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 because that way it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
But we are more like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. So far, so good. You know, we take it one day at a time, but things are good. So like, let's not go there, and like, let's support each other and keep supporting each other. So it's one of those things. Yes. Thank you for that comment. That's a very, very, very good way of putting it. Jealousy is fear of abandonment. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And yes, we should talk about toxic behaviors instead of toxic people. I agree, because people can change their behaviors when they're more confident, when they're more self-aware, when they are more consciously aware of the context of other individuals with whom they're involved, and everything can improve when you work on that. As you said, you and your past relationships, you were way more toxic than
If we
this
do a
relationship.
podcast in that topic, I have lots of stories
Okay.
and a lot of toxic traits. I can tell everybody what, when to run.
Warning signs. Okay,
Warning
we're gonna
signs.
do an episode. Maybe 2 weeks from now, we'll do an episode on warning signs.
Yeah, that would be nice,
would
and
be
how
fun.
to recognize toxic traits and how to know that you're in a toxic trait. Because sometimes when you're in love, you
justify
see
everything.
the best, and it's hard. So I think that should be a podcast
Okay.
a whole nother episode.
We're gonna do that, but let's wrap up, because obviously we're taking a lot of your time. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for participating in the chat. We love you guys, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place, 11 a.m. Central Time. Next week's topic is self-gratitude, so that you become less controlling, less intense, and less, just so you become a better version of yourself. So let's do that next week, and see you there. Have a good one.